Like if you had your own separate YouTube account that tracks like names.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Without knowing that he's watching.
I mean, just as like a public, because can they comments down there or nobody?
Yeah, we have everything turned on. Otherwise, yeah, we could be a comment.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, you're in there, you're in the system right now, so.
Historical detail.
We're live.
All right, we're live, everybody.
Good evening. Thank you for your patience. We apologize for the delay in our stream. We're going to blame it on St. Patrick's Day and wish you all a happy one. Welcome to the Board of Education's District 68 Board of Education meeting for March 17th, 2022. I would like to start with a roll call.
Bell Jordan. Here. Espinoza. Here. Joseph.
Here.
Ruffner.
Here.
Sturbans.
Here.
Sullivan. Here. Warshaw. Thank you.
We will now open our meeting for public comment. I believe we have written comments that will be read.
Yes, and so we do have 12, I believe, written comments who are from former students of ours who are at Niles North. It looks like they received a classroom assignment to write school board tonight. So because some of them are lengthy, Phyllis and I are going to take turns reading, so we have time to catch our breath and drink some water between.
Number one is from Tiffany Waneen. I am a former student of Old Orchard Middle School. I believe that you guys should keep French class at Old Orchard because when students are going to attend Niles North, they will get a head start if they'd like to continue French in the future.
The next comment is from Sophia Solheim Magnuson. My name is Sophia Solheim, and I'm a former student of Old Orchard Middle School. I don't think that French should be taken away. I started French in 7th grade, and it was one of the best decisions I have ever made. I was accepted into a great community of students learning French. Along with learning the language, we learned about the culture. It was something that I looked forward to every day, and I think that students should be given the opportunity to take the language.
The next one is from a Medina Najirik. My name is Medina Najirik. I am a former student of Old Orchard Middle School. I loved French class when I went to Old Orchard Junior High. Madame Petit is the sweetest teacher I have had. Knowing that I took French made me feel unique because it is not like a normal class such as math or history. I also love French because it's a pretty language. Spanish is a lovely language too, but I feel that everyone takes that language. I loved Madame Petit's style of teaching too. I still remember her catchy songs that helped us remember French vocab, and that has helped me so much in my French education in high school. She made French fun. We played all kinds of fun games. When I heard that French class might be removed, I was devastated. I made so many good memories in that class. I would younger Old Orchard Junior High students to make memories too. I believe that getting rid of French class at Old Orchard would be a mistake.
The next comment is from Sertso Drugdor. I'm a former student of Old Orchard Junior High, and I think French should be kept and taught at Old Orchard. I think that giving French as an option is important so that students aren't limited to one language. I took French for 2 years before coming to high school, so it was easier for me to adjust compared to other students since I took the language already. I think it was nice that I could have the options of what language I wanted to take and not be limited to one option.
The next comment is from Joanna Jacob. Hello, my name is Joanna Jacob, and I'm a former student at Old Orchard Middle School. Choosing to take French is one of the decisions I have made in middle school. I took French during 7th and 8th grade and really enjoyed it. I learned a lot throughout those years, even though we had to switch to remote learning. I am still taking French right now, and taking French in middle school is really helping me. I am able to understand my French teacher right now when she speaks in French. I am also able to understand my French pen pal and also be able to respond to her in French. My brother is currently a student at Old Orchard 6th grade and took French for 6 weeks. Throughout those 6 weeks, Madame Petit was able to teach him so much. He was able to speak to me in simple sentences and able to respond to some questions. Madame was able to teach my brother and I so much, and I'm really thankful that I had her as a teacher. She is an amazing teacher. She made herself available to help me whenever I needed it. It is truly amazing that she was able to teach me so much during remote and in-person learning. I have made so many memories throughout my years of French, and I want future French students to have the same amazing experience and make a lot of memories to take with them after they graduate. Removing French from Old Orchard would be a drastic mistake.
Next comment is from Lauren Klaus. My name is Lauren, and I'm a former French student at Old Orchard. Although sixth grade was a mandatory preview of the French course offered, Madame Petit treated that class like all of her other classes. Her encouragement and kindness shown to myself and the students in my sixth grade class encouraged me to sign up for French class for the next 2 years of junior high. French class challenged me to step out of my comfort zone, make mistakes, and learn from them with my classmates. Class over Zoom during my last year of middle school challenged everyone, including myself. Madame Petit was very accommodating during online learning and gave her students breaks and game days when needed. She stepped out of her way to create a website so her students could navigate the units easily. The movies and songs shown in class were a simple and effective way to show more of the French culture to her students and myself. French class was extremely hands-on and made learning a language feel less daunting. If French was not offered to me when I was attending Old Orchard, I do not think I would have signed up for French class in high school, or at least would not have been as curious and motivated to learn the language in my free time and in class. French class in middle school allowed me to gain confidence in language learning and be prepared to make the most out of the French class offered in high school. And without it, younger students may not have the opportunity that I had.
The next comment is from Stefan Westerberg. Hello, I hope all is well for the board. My name is Stefan Westerberg, and I am a former student of Old Orchard Junior High, as well as Jane Sensen Elementary School. I even attended the early childhood preschool program at Old Orchard Junior High, so this district has truly been responsible for my upbringing, which I am most grateful for. I remember once attending a session for the district as one of a select few eighth graders chosen to sit on a board meeting and discuss what improvements and changes we thought that, together with members of the community, as well as faculty and staff, could be implemented in order to overall enhance the experience of District 68. That was 4 years ago. Now, as a high school senior ready to graduate and turn over a new leaf in the coming months, I have been prompted to write to you all by the French department here at Niles North for a matter of which is quite frankly disappointing. It is apparent that the canceling of the French program at Old Orchard Junior High has been proposed, and while I certainly am no longer an official district student and know little of all the bureaucratic measures associated with such a decision, I strongly protest this choice. Old Orchard Junior High has the privilege of being the only Niles North feeder school to offer French, and this is not a benefit to be taken lightly. Taking classes here at the high school, it is clear that we are better equipped with the language and can involve ourselves in richer experiences than our fellow classmates who began their education in the language later on. Old Orchard Junior High students are the grand majority of those taking the AP French exam this year, which provides great aid, both educationally and financially, in terms of university experience. And just if the experience of your own students does not convince you enough, French is not just a language of the West. It is not limited to the white-dominated culture and history of France. It is a native language for many of those in Africa and other areas of the world who have had their own stories to tell and perspectives to present in the French language. It is predicted that by 2050, there will be literally 750 million speakers worldwide, due mostly to the large predicted growth in population of several notable African countries, specifically the DRC, the Congo, the Ivory Coast, Chad, and a host of other nations. Do we want to eliminate Americans' ability to communicate with such a diverse group of peoples, ranging from our neighbors to the north in Quebec to across the Atlantic and into Tunisia? It is not the point of language to foster an appreciation for culture, diversity, and our brethren. Why is there such a need to cut this program? And in relation to this, shame on the district for placing the choir program in such an awkward and inaccessible position. STEM is wonderful. It is important and vital to our existence. We cannot live without it. You know what else we cannot live without? The arts. They glorify our existence. They explore the outermost reaches of human imagination and creativity. They embody our very souls and ultimately enrich our lives. Surely you don't run out to your nearest research lab for entertainment. You play your favorite songs off your phone, go out to watch a movie, or perhaps enjoy making a meal with friends. Now, if it is because the pandemic has brought issues to maintaining these programs, I believe that the arts should actually be embraced even more so. Science saves us, but the arts make life worth saving. Do not limit the experience of your students by taking away some of the most passionate and inspiring aspects of life in their education. I enjoyed my time in French, choir, and FCS at Old Orchard Junior High. My hope is that the future students will be able to enjoy all of this as well. And if you cannot tell through my writing, I am severely upset, and I hope perhaps some guilt that wells up within the board might bring proper change to the school system. Thank you.
Before I read the next one, so some of you who are on the strategic plan committee, I guess almost 5 years ago, might remember Stefan. He was one of our student representatives and did an excellent job participating, and we were all very impressed by him then, and he's obviously only grown more so in his academic and writing abilities since then. The next comment is Nagoltso Drugdor. My name is Nagoltso, and I'm a former student of Old Orchard Middle School. I think that French should be kept as a language that is taught because it gives more options on what you could learn. It is important to give this opportunity to students who are interested in learning French. I took French in middle school, so I was ahead of the other students that would start in high school. Taking French in middle school also allowed me to adjust to taking it in high school because of my past experience taking it.
The next comment is from Isa Veronica Camargo. My name is Isa Veronica Camargo. I am a former student of Old Orchard Junior High who took French, and many former students have heard about your suggestion about ending the French program. I think it's best to not move forward with your choice. Being able to choose from 2 different languages in middle school helps the students of District 68 be a step ahead from other students from other middle schools when taking French in high school. This choice that you may choose to make would be a mistake. You would be taking away the availability for students to explore outside cultures and languages before their high school experience, which would cause many students to want to stick to what they're used to and not choose to take that step and explore other languages. I think you should rethink your decision and what effects it may cause to many of the people within the district. I know there isn't much to say besides this, but taking away this opportunity for the students isn't a good idea in many eyes. When I took French at Old Orchard Junior High, it really did help me open up to others and made me feel like I have the ability to choose what I wanted. So I hope you take the time to think before you make a decision that could affect so many people.
Okay, the next comment is from Chloe Rybacki. I wanted to make a comment regarding the proposed closure of the French program at Old Orchard. I am currently a student at Niles North, but the OOJH French program has made such an impact on my experiences both in middle school and beyond. Without it, I wouldn't have been able to study at such a high level at Niles North. I expect I will even be able to earn college credit through AP French next year. Beyond helping me with identifying new English words, providing me with new friendships, experiences, and leadership opportunities, and even aiding me on the SAT, the study of the French language has come to be something to look forward to each day. Closing the program would end one of the elements that makes Old Orchard unique among local schools. I strongly urge you to continue this unique program so that future students would be able to reap the same benefits that I benefited from.
The next comment is from Emily Chan. Dear Board of Education, today during my French AP4 honors level class, it was brought to our attention that the French program at Old Orchard Junior High may be cut. As a current senior at Niles North High School and former Old Orchard student, I would like to bring up some concerns about this possible decision. I began learning the French language during 7th grade at Old Orchard. I was extremely excited to have 2 options to learn a language at my school, and I consider this opportunity to be very unique to our district. The opportunity to learn a second language gives students the ability to start proficiency in a language such as French at an earlier age and continue to grow in the language through high school. I am now in my 6th school year of French, and I'm extremely grateful I had the opportunity to take the language. I think that all language classes are vital within our diverse community of Skokie, as they have a vital role in the well-rounded education. I believe that keeping the French program is an extremely important decision. This year I took the stamp test in hopes of getting the seal of biliteracy in French. I am also planning to take the AP tests in May to earn college credit for French courses. Without the opportunity to take French at Old Orchard, I would not have been as successful in my level of French this year. Niles North has a variety of languages to take no matter your grade, and I believe this variety of languages is just important in junior high. French class has given me the opportunity to learn a second language, but more importantly, it has given me the chance to connect with others, to learn about culture, to meet people from different countries, and to help new students who are native French speakers. The French program at Old Orchard Junior High should continue to be offered so students have more than one option at learning a second language. Sincerely, Emily Chan.
And our last comment is from Emily Butera. Hello, my name is Emily Butera. I'm a former student at Old Orchard Junior High. I currently go to Niles North and am French 3 honors. I'm also one of the members of the National French Honor Society. I truly believe the community within the French-speaking students is amazing. It's such an amazing experience because over the years of taking the class, you are mostly staying with the same peers. So I've been able to work and progress with my friends. I've made many friendships and memories taking French class, not only at Old Orchard Junior High, but also at Niles North. Although the French-speaking population within Skokie may be small compared to others, it is important to offer a wide variety of languages through the school. It has been scientifically proven that it is easier to learn a language when you are younger. So the best time to start learning French is when you are young. Our community has predominantly English and Spanish-speaking families. However, French is also a very valuable language to know. The U.S. borders Canada, which speaks French, and there has recently been a lot of immigrants coming in from Haiti, which speak French. Please consider keeping French as one of your course offerings at Old Orchard Junior High.
Thank you for reading. Thank you for submitting. It was somebody here, such good writing.
And during the next section, I will give some other background information about the French program.
Thank you. And then we shall move on to the superintendent's reports.
All right. Our first superintendent report this evening is about the 2022 bond sale, and we have planning information for you, Ryan, if you.
Yeah, I would like to do Ms. Elizabeth Hennessy from Raymond James, who has been our bond counsel for, I don't want to date anybody, so over 10 years, and then some. So she's the expert here. The selling bonds has been part of our fiscal strategy for over many years, has been part of the financial projections. It feels like 2 years ago that we did this, but it was actually 4 years ago. And I will hand it over.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about the bond market. I gave you a book, and I think it's on the screen as well as a slideshow. First, about the bond market. It's been quite a rise since the first of the year, but pressure on interest rates is definitely up. So this graph takes us back to January of 19, and we're looking at the tax exempt market as represented by the AAA Municipal Market Data Index. This values the strongest AAA rated bond issues in the nation and follows their yields each day. So interest rates came down through 2019 until we hit the pandemic in March of 2020. Then interest rates went up really violently with selling. Fed stepped in, calmed the markets down, rates came back down. We hit an all-time low in August of 2020 for municipal rates. And now since January and kind of the information about inflation and increasing costs, we've seen interest rates creep up. And then they were spurred on by the war in Ukraine and the pressure that puts on oil and the price of gas, which is part of that inflation thing. We also have the supply chain pressures from the pandemic. So all those things together mean interest rates have gone up and are continuing to go up. Yesterday, the Fed, for the first time since pre-pandemic, increased interest rates by the Fed funds rate. That's the very short-term rate that banks borrow from each other, by 25 basis points. And the language they talked about at each of their meetings, considering raising rates on 25 basis points. So that's one of the reasons Ryan and I spoke, and I'm here tonight, is to think about issuing these bonds again before interest rates really continue to ramp up as they've started to already. Go to the next slide. Here's the outstanding bonds. The last payment is 12/1/22 this December, which is in the fiscal year 23. Each payment is just under 2.2 million, principal and interest. And these are taxable working cash bonds that sit in the working cash fund and are used to help the district with its operational budget, and as Ryan mentioned, is in your financial projections. And we roll these bonds over every 3, 4, or 5 years. So that's what we're looking to do again. Let's go to the next slide. This fits nicely within the district's overall debt limit, which is 75 million. You've got about 6.2 million of principal still outstanding, and the net debt limit is 68.8 million, so lots of room there. We go to the next slide. This is the working cash bond limit. In Illinois, there's a specific limit just for working cash bonds. So here you can see that limit is 15.6 million. Let's go to the next page under financing options. So every 4 years, as I mentioned, you've been issuing the bonds. As soon as the last one's paid off, you issue another one. So if we issue bonds now, it will go on the 22 levy year. Okay, and we're suggesting repaying them over 5 years, especially in light of continually increasing interest rates. There is no increase in the debt service payments with this new bond, so as taxpayers will not feel any increase at all. The payments are exactly the same and will extend for another 5 years. We've also discussed the fact that the district has accumulated almost 1.6 million as a balance in the debt service fund. And that balance comes from loss and collection that the county clerk adds on to property taxes to make sure you have enough money to pay your bonds in case someone doesn't pay their taxes or you collect less than you expect. They want to first and foremost make sure you can pay those bonds. So if you have strong collections, those dollars can accumulate in that fund, and you can only use those dollars to pay principal and interest on bonds. You can't directly transfer the money to the O&M fund or to the ed fund. It must be spent on principal and interest on bonds. So one way to access a portion of those funds, because we do want to leave some balance in the fund, is to issue a bond that's paid off in 30 days. 30 days is the shortest period of time that bond counsel will let us pay back a bond. And so in this case, we're suggesting utilizing 1.1 million of this 1.6 million balance. That leaves 500,000 in the fund, and that helps get more proceeds to be used for operating and what have you for the district. So we think that would be a smart move to do in conjunction with this bond issue. So let's go to the next page, and you might be able to see this on your book easier than on the screen. But right in the middle of the page, you see the 2018 debt service, which is paid off in levy year 21. And then we've got the proposed debt service that's for the 22 bonds. So that first payment, we would pay off really fast. So you see a payment of $1,099,000, and that's paid off by that 1.1 million that we have in the fund. So that's why it says less funds on hand for that very first payment. Okay, so that, then we pay the 2.2 million a year for the next 5 years, and the bonds are completely retired then in levy year 26. As you can see, the tax rate is still at 20 cents, very steady and stable for the taxpayer, no increase, no decrease. Because these bonds are paid from this debt service extension base, which is part of the tax cap, and it grows by CPI every year, you can see in the green box, you have even more capability. If you would want to, you could, pay off as much as another 820,000 a year, but that of course would increase the tax rate. So the philosophy has always been, let's just keep those payments stable to the community and no increase there.
I think, Brian, the slide is different than the book. I think it's just missing the 1.1.
Yes.
Oh,
The interest rate's different.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, the book is more updated than the
Okay.
screen. Sorry about
That's
that.
all right.
Thanks for pointing that out. we go to the next page, it's just a graphic. The graphic is pretty much the same, but this is, in fact, gets you 10,000,008 in proceeds, so. And that's higher than the original 9.8 million because we're able to use that additional 1.1 million to increase the proceeds to the district.
So that extra 1.1 million not only somewhat lowers the interest rate a little bit, right, because we're paying it off quicker.
Yeah.
But it also allows us to utilize the money in the fund that we can't utilize for any other reason.
Right.
And it allows the proceeds also to be larger on the back end. Is that?
That's right.
Brian, can you say the last sentence again? Allows the proceeds to be.
So it allows the proceeds, so, you know, creditors, I guess, or people who buy bonds, you know, want to get paid, period, right? And allowing us, you know, to use that 1.1 million and pay off some of the interest and payments earlier, stuff that we already have, allows the overall proceeds of the bonds, because we're paying the interest first, allows the proceeds to be higher, basically, because they want to get paid, and the quicker you pay them, the more they'll give you, kind of.
Because the interest cost is lower.
Right.
Mhm.
So since it slightly reduces the interest cost because we're paying it quicker, so you have the lower interest, the you know, the sooner you pay off the loan, they usually give you the lower interest rate. So because we're switching part of the overall loan, if you will, and paying a portion of the interest up front, we're able to get a bigger sum overall.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the last page, which is our schedule. And so tonight we're discussing the issuance of bonds, and if the board agrees, we'll come back on Thursday, April 21st, with a resolution of intent to issue. In this case, it'll be probably, we'll say up to 11 million, because we want to allow you to get the max within this 5-year window, and if interest rates go lower, which we can only hope, probably won't happen, we want to be able to get that higher amount if we can. Because, you know, we have kind of a set window payoff of that 2.2 million a year, and the lower the interest rates, the higher the principal out of there. So then we'll have a public hearing as required by the statutes on the May 19th meeting. And then we would bring the district a bond resolution on June 16th of 22. And then we would issue the bonds and close in mid-July of 22. One thing to note, in the past, we have been lucky enough to be able to work with your township treasurer to simply privately place these bonds. That saves about 50% of the cost of issuing the bonds. Our fee is lower, bond counsel fee, we don't have a rating fee. And what we do is negotiate with the township treasurer to find an interest rate that is right for a taxable issuer who has a very strong bond rating like you guys do, AA1, and save a ton of the cost of issuance by following that methodology. It's worked out, I think, on the last 2 sales
Yes.
very well,
Mhm.
to simply place them with the Niles Township treasurer. And then he's, you know, investing all of the school districts within the township in your bonds. Makes a very efficient deal.
So projections show us saving about 70,000 with this specific issuance by giving it to, or having the township treasurer buy our bonds. It also kind of keeps the money within Niles Township, which I also like. And it's also easier, Ms. Hennessy pointed out, you know, we don't have to get a rating agency to come in. And we can kind of, I don't think it's much of a negotiation, but we kind of negotiate with him and make sure we get an accurate, fair, good price, as opposed to when you go out to market, it could be better than what you expected, it could be worse. It, you know, just kind of allows us to somewhat set a fair price.
Any questions?
Just that one. You were discussing the interest rates and the unlikelihood that they're going to go down. Given how turbulent things appear to be, is there a point to which they could rise that you think that we should take pause on proceeding with this, or is it still low enough?
You know, that's a good question. You know, I think because this is part of your financial plan, you need to do this. If rates went especially high, you know, we might look at, I don't know, maybe doing it in two pieces, shortening the term. But, you know, I think by locking the rates in now, we're gonna be better off than waiting till next fall or even next year, given the trend and the inflation pressures we're experiencing.
Thank you.
When you say by locking the rates now, when
I
specifically
mean
do you mean by
June,
now?
I would
June?
mean
Okay.
June, because we do have to follow these procedures.
And overall, grand scope, we are still in a relatively low interest rate, right? I mean, compared to,
Even compared to, I mean, if we go back to that first graph, we're still lower than January of 2019.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. It's just a little bit frightening, the pace of the increases that we felt and the pace of the acceleration of inflation. So anyway, hopefully our Fed's gonna get it under control with these rate increases and calm the markets down. But we are still lower than we were in January of 2019. So I think that's a good marker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the information.
Thank you. Take care.
Alright, we'll continue with the superintendent's report.
Sure, so first up is just an update on one of my investor favorite topics, which is our experience working through COVID. I will say, I continue to be heartened by where things are going. A few weeks ago, we made the decision, as most school districts did, to make masks optional. That's I think we had a lot more anxiety about what the effects of that would be than we're really seeing at the moment. Our school buildings report different levels of kids and staff members choosing to not wear masks. In some schools it's a much smaller percent that are choosing not to wear masks. In others it's larger, and some we hear reports of situational mask using. Like, for example, right now, most of the time if I'm out in my office going around and doing the stuff, I still choose to wear a mask. But in some circumstances, like this, where there's lots of talking and reading and whatnot, I choose not to wear a mask. And we see kids and staff members making some of those strategic choices as well, based upon their environment and what they're doing. The COVID numbers have been somewhat remarkable given where we were a relatively short time ago, and I know this isn't real wood, but I think today we have 2 students in the district that are COVID positive who are home. We have 0 staff members who've been absent for almost a month now for COVID reasons, whether it's personal or family related. And the numbers have really been kind of down at that level since last week. There was actually a couple days last week we had 0 students, and then it went up to 1, and it's kind of moved around a little bit there. Our next our next potential little hurdle is spring break, because what we've typically seen is surges occur after time where people might be mingling more, particularly holidays, where people are getting together with family, and masks are often maybe not the choice in those settings. For spring break, I don't really, spring break's a little bit of a different kind of time off than, say, winter break, and holiday breaks. So I don't really anticipate a huge surge after spring break, but I will not be surprised if we see a relatively small uptick in cases when we come back. To really be on top of things, we are going to adopt a similar strategy to what we did right after winter break. We are going to do shield testing at all 4 schools on the Monday when we come back. Shield will not come and do that for us because we are not in outbreak status, so they won't do twice a week unless you're in outbreak status. So we are marshaling our resources, some of who are in the room, as well as some helpers that they might have to be able to get through, a long day of shield testing on that first Monday back. And then we also have the regular shield testing that will occur later on in the week. So that way, if there is any, rising numbers, we're able to be on top of that in relatively short order. If we test, virtually everybody on that Monday, by Tuesday, we'll kind of have a clear picture of what we're really looking at and whether we need to take any additional steps. I'm hoping and believing that things will be fine and that we won't have to take any additional mitigation steps as we come back. And that the rest of the school year hopefully will continue to be somewhat smooth sailing, which leads into the next part. We've already talked to principals about being able to resume field trips and kind of put some parameters out there on what that looks like, given the short amount of time, given our own transportation to get to those field trips and whatnot. We're telling teachers you can plan for one field trip at this time, just because if people try to make up for lost field trips, and we don't think the transportation department would be able to manage it and whatnot. So but we have lifted the field trip curtain and said that those are allowable. And we're even exploring, has not been finalized yet, but even exploring the possibility of a special one-day trip for all of our 5th graders. We're not doing the traditional outdoor ed experience we've done in the past still. We hope to be able to return to do that next year. I was delighted to, I believe it was earlier this week or last week, during a communication with our union members. One of the topics that was put on there was outdoor ed. And outdoor ed is something that teachers go above and beyond for every year. They come in, they give extra time, they spend nights away from family to do that. And we're really only able to do outdoor ed because of the teachers' willingness to do that. So when I saw the agenda item, I didn't know exactly what direction that might go, because I absolutely, being a family man myself, I understand, that it's a hardship for teachers to go and be away from, families, especially if you have little kids. But the actual topic was that when can we get back to outdoor ed? Our teachers want to do it. So that was really pleasing to hear. And we anticipate next year we could get back to a normal outdoor ed experience. This year we're working on some sort of mini, one-day experience. And that hasn't been finalized, so stay tuned for more information. Any questions about anything COVID related before I switch to a different topic? Okay, thank you. So obviously we heard from a dozen of our former Niles North students who were given an assignment by their French teacher to write the school board, to lobby to keep French. One of the things that we don't have the luxury of doing when we make these initial decisions is broadcasting to the community all of the rationale. So right now, let me go back a little bit. Over the years, our French enrollment has been declining rather dramatically. Back in 2017-18, we had 58 kids at 6th grade, 38 at 7th grade. Trimester. 58 kids in the first trimester, 38 kids second trimester, 30 kids in the 3rd trimester in French. In 18-19, we changed the foreign language program up a little bit in order to address interest level in the languages. So at 6th grade, we increased the French position and the Spanish position at the time because we created a 6-week rotation for our 6th graders to give them a taste of French and to give them a taste of Spanish. thinking that is going to help kids make a decision about whether they want to take a foreign language, and if so, which one. So we did that, and it was basically mandatory French and Spanish for 6 weeks at that grade level. During that year, 2018 to 2019, we had 12 seventh graders elect to be in French and 11 eighth graders. 2019, 2020, we had 31 seventh graders, 9 eighth graders. 2021, I don't think I have accurate numbers here because we show 0. We'll have to go look in the computer and figure out what happened there. But this year, we have 8 kids in 7th grade who will go on to 8th grade next year to be in French. Our 8th grade class moving on has 22 kids that will be moving on. It's just not sustainable to hold a program that has such low interest in enrollment. And I certainly understand the impassioned pleas of our students and from the handful of parents that emailed the board today too, none of which knew or know about the enrollment numbers and how the program is just declining. All of our students have the opportunity to learn about both languages, a little bit about the culture, and then they make a choice. The choice is overwhelming. Our Spanish program for those kids that go to go on to take a foreign language. Our Spanish enrollment is healthy. I don't know what the exact number is, but it probably approaches, close to 175 kids or so. So there is definitely interest in foreign language, but it's just not really French. A few years ago, we had some discussions when some community members and high school teachers once again were wanting us to add Hebrew is a foreign language. And at the time, the decision in the discussion was that we didn't think we would have the enrollment to be able to sustain a Hebrew program. And we're at the same place with the French program. We didn't add a Hebrew program because the enrollment numbers would probably be similar or less than what we actually have in our French program right now. We're the only school district in the township to offer French. And probably half the districts do not offer Spanish. So I'm very proud of our former students and their writing skills and their advocacy for the program. I believe they were given classroom time to do this today at the behest of their teacher, as some of the students have referred to. But at this time, next year, we'll have 8 kids in 8th grade. It's just, does not make sense. The interest isn't there to maintain a program that's our current kids. Our former kids, we see the interest is strong. But our current kids, they're not displaying that interest even after being exposed to the option. So anyway, I think that's about all I have for superintendent reports.
Thank you very much. We move on to a reading and acceptance of minutes. I call for a motion to approve the minutes from the February 17th, 2022 Board of Education regular meeting and the February 17th, 2022 Board of Education closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Espinoza. Yes. Joseph.
Yes.
Bruckner.
Yes.
Sturbanks.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Jordan. Yes. Thank you.
The consent agenda is our next item of business. Does any member wish to remove any item for separate consideration? I therefore call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, which includes the personnel report authorizing the hire, resignation, retirement, and non-renewal of licensed staff, the hire and resignation of classified staff, including 3 days of unpaid suspension for Leo Biza, financial reports, pay orders and expenditures, the second reading on board policies 4160, 4170, 510, 520, 530, 5185, 5220, 5250, 5260, and 5330, and the destruction of the closed session audio recording from August 5th, 2020.
Second.
Joseph.
Yes.
Bruckner.
Yes.
Sturbanks.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Jordan. Yes. Espinoza.
Yes.
We move to reports and discussion items. I hand the floor to Ms. Espinoza for the TDSE report.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton of information that we really went over. We had a lot of presentations. We hadn't had presentations in a while, just for the format of it all. Our first was a training / presentation from the software company Super Eval, which is what NTDSE will be using for Taryn's, the director, but superintendent-ish over at NTDSE, the software program that we will be using to evaluate her. So just kind of going through the ins and outs of that program. We heard a presentation for the deaf and hard of hearing program where teachers came in and showed just different ways that they are, working with the kids and their programs and how things go through the wide range of that whole program with videos of students and their programs. So that was really interesting. There was a lot of great things in there. And then as well as the Bridges program for students 18 to 22, kind of housed over at 219 there, and just kind of how that was going and the things that they have the kids engage in, and baked cookies for us that they brought to the meeting, which were super yummy, and all of those great things that they have been working on over there.
You didn't bring any cookies?
No, they were all eating that night. They were very good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
And now we'll have a brief strategic plan discussion.
So, as I believe everybody in the room is aware, our 5-year strategic plan somehow is almost up already. I had a little flashback to hearing Stefan speak again today. So what we would normally be doing is this coming fall, we would engage in that strategic plan discussion and planning, inviting community members, board members, staff members, the administrators, and people from the community as well to participate in that. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this and just timing and where we're at. There's certainly elements of our current strategic plan that would appear to be relatively timeless. Things that we would always identify, to help identify who we are as a school district and and who we would continue to aspire to be. But there's also some things that basically got tabled to some extent because of our experiences of the last couple of years. So in some ways, there's parts of it that are unfinished and certainly not where I would have anticipated them to be at this point pre-pandemic. I'm also, cognizant of some timing related to my eventual retirement, which is still a couple of years down the road. But I know that being able to be a superintendent and participating in that strategic plan was so much more meaningful than inheriting a plan that I wasn't a part of and didn't have the full context and understanding. So I've been kind of going back and forth with, ideas and thinking about, so what should we do? Should we, engage in a 5-year strategic plan discussion at this point, or could there be some other, potential options? Another piece of my wonderings about all of that have to do with the pandemic itself. If we were to create a strategic plan today based on the context of where we are today and coming out of the pandemic, I think it might be a very different strategic plan than we might develop a year or two after the pandemic's over. I think different things might rise up and feel real urgent right now that may not feel so urgent in a year or two, assuming things settle down as we're hoping. So I wondered if one option might be is looking at a shorter term strategic plan that might incorporate some of the things that we have left unfinished in the current strategic plan, and would allow us to keep doing some of the things that we think that we'll always be needing to do with the strategic plan as well. And I think that helps a little bit with the idea that we might put things in a strategic plan right now based upon COVID that might not feel relevant, shortly afterwards. So if we create this shorter one, we can address some of those things that feel relevant today. but that might not feel relevant later on. My other thought too is if we create that shorter term strategic plan that, let's say it spans 2 years, we create it next year. Last time I think we had it approved by January, and then that following year was considered to be the first year. So we actually got a little extra, a few months out of it there. If we did that for a couple of years, then the timing works out that you'd have a new superintendent who would have been in the district for their first full year. They would then have a context to be able to participate, be able to help lead that, and be able to own it in a way that would be different if we create a 5-year strategic plan that then gets handed off. So in my mind, thinking of like succession, that felt like a good fit for, that next step that the district will take when they identify my replacement. With that, I'll just open that up to thoughts, comments, or whatever that you might have, because really, the options are yours to choose.
I like the thinking. I think there's a couple of different things, but the district, I like the idea of being able to do something more short term. We've experienced something extraordinary, and you're right. We don't know what we're going to be thinking is pertinent in 2 years, and I would hate to do a 5-year plan in the mindset that we are now. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I also think it's very attractive for, we don't want to see you go, Jim, but thinking about the next iteration, I think it's very attractive in looking for new leadership to be able to come in and have the ability to help grow the next iteration of the district and not inherit 5 years of a plan. I would imagine as a candidate that would be very attractive, but also have some guidepost that they join to get a sense of what's happening in the district and what the values and goals are. So, I think from a district perspective and from attracting candidates, that's a very good idea. I don't know what others think.
I think the process of searching for the next candidate is its own strategic goal in and of itself too. So that's, again, yet another thing that we can be baked into the next couple of years that won't be relevant 5 years from now, 4 years from now. I like the idea of it. And I know the cost of engaging and doing that is not extraordinary.
No, it's really, it's not. Certainly with the facilitator we used last year, Jeff Cohn, who did an excellent job leading us through last time. He was probably going to be the first person I was going to reach out to see if he's still available and doing that work.
So, Jim, are you envisioning doing a similarly robust input from the community, students, the same sort of group for both of those sessions, both for the short term that we would be contemplating, a 2-year plan now, and then likely you would not be there for the next one, but with the idea of doing that same kind of input for the longer term plan?
So I haven't spent lots of time planning out kind of what that would look like, but I think, I don't see the process being all that different in terms of who's involved and bringing in a facilitator, and I don't know if he's got any new strategies he uses. What he used last time seemed to be very effective, but I don't see it a short-term process or a process to build a short-term plan to be really any different. I think. It may be abbreviated in terms of how long it takes because it's a shorter plan. As I said before, I pulled down the strategic plan off my wall. There's a big one over here. And like a lot of those goal areas, it's like are relatively timeless. When are we not going to be about, culture and climate and equity? When are we not going to be about teaching? So like the headers, for the most part, I think would kind of stay there. Some of the activities I think would stay there. A lot of it's going to be in identifying some of what fits under those umbrellas that would be next steps to support our students and our staff. And I think with a little bit of a bent of, where we are right now and, dare I say, kind of recovery plan, I guess, from our experience of the last couple of years. And then I wouldn't be around for that next plan, but I would assume it would be a full-on engagement plan, similar to this shorter plan, if that's the way we go, and the last plan. But again, that'll be you guys that'll.
I asked because the last time we did this, I was fortunate, I was able to participate as a community member, I wasn't yet on the board, and it was really instructive.
Mhm.
And it gave me a ton of information about what was happening in the district. It gave me really my first opportunity to engage in that kind of conversation. And both related to the pandemic. I agree that there will likely be some short-term goals, but I think if you look just at today, and it's part of what you discussed in your superintendent report, even if we don't necessarily have a full audience at our meetings, it's clear that we have community engagement, we have parents who want to be involved and want input on decisions.
Mhm.
And as we're making decisions related to how to respond to the pandemic, some of those will be short-term. You know better than I probably ever will, that some of the impacts are going to be long-term on the development of students and how we should proceed educationally.
Yeah.
And so long as both the short-term and then the longer-term plan, the idea is to have that same level of input.
Yeah.
And I think that it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, that would be certainly my plan for a shorter one. Like I said, I wouldn't be there for that longer one, but I would assume it, certainly with your direction, if that's what you guys all feel at the time, that it would go along a similar way. And you're right, there may be impacts that, last longer than a short term. There's absolutely nothing that says that next plan, can't incorporate some of the things that we need to do to support students and staff at that time. And, what we start out those strategic plan sessions with is sort of an overall review, state of the district. It includes student data, achievement, all sorts of different things that sort of help paint the picture for everybody who's there, that then, can kind of lead to the kinds of things that we feel like we need to address.
I think also it's important to keep in mind that as far as the pandemic's concerned, like the policy decisions that are going on right now seem to be presuming that, okay, we're on the end of the pandemic, but that scientific question is not actually answered yet. So I think going for I like the idea of going for a shorter term strategic plan, because there are also big impacts that have occurred for families, for students, for staff, that we're really gonna need to plan for, because people are really burnt out and they're having a hard time figuring out how to navigate in a new environment where things are not normal, and we don't really yet know what normal is gonna look like at all pandemics end. But we don't know what's gonna happen with this particular virus, and so I think having a short-term plan that really looks at like what can we continue that makes sense, but then also what are the things that we need to be able to do to support people to be able to thrive moving forward is good, without having that long-term goal.
The long-term burden of
Right.
when seeing the future
Right.
feels harder than it's ever felt, I guess.
Right.
After our experience for the last couple of years. I agree. I hope and pray that, we're on the mend and that things will continue to go well. I also, keep abreast of world news and the science community, and I can't tell you with absolute confidence that it's over and that we won't see, additional surges or additional mitigations in the future. I hope not, but, I'm not placing money on anything quite yet. So again, I think with that in mind, not trying to plan out as long-term makes a lot of sense.
Any other questions?
So I will reach out to Jeff Cohn, see if he's available, and start dialoguing with him about, what it could look like. Potentially at the next board meeting, I might have some updated information. I know we've got spring break in the middle of that too, and based upon my ability to get some time with Jeff, but potentially I'll come back with things fleshed out a little bit more about what it could look like. At the April board meeting, if it doesn't happen at the April board meeting, I'm not concerned. The strategic plan process. I believe last time, I want to say beginning of October is when we actually met. We did surveys of, ahead of time and did some other prep ahead of time. So, we're well within a schedule of time to kind of create that plan. I'll bring back, share more information with you. You'll have more opportunity for input in the process at that time. And then, we'll keep moving forward with the idea of creating a 2-year plan that would be created next fall. The timeline on approval would probably be like January-ish of next year. And then the 2 years of that plan would be not only the remainder of next year, but the following 2 years. And at that point, you'd have a new superintendent who would have been here for a year. That following fall, they would have had time to form relationships and get a better context for the district and the needs of the district.
That's good. I'm still not
Uh,
getting the cobwebs out about how we got here to 5 years almost.
It's
Yeah.
just
And you were there.
like a short time
right?
ago.
And you were there. So, and Scarecrow, you weren't. So that's great. We might get 2 of them then. All right. We'll move on to the Board of Education policy first readings. Thank you.
Okay, well, my favorite thing about these policies is when they print out, the print is tiny. I have not been able
Pitch
to,
it.
haven't been able to transition to progressive lenses. Oh, you've got slightly bigger copies. So when you see me take my
I know, I
glasses
can
off
bring
and
them
move
up
back
here.
and
Put it on the
forth,
screen, Jen, so we can
because
make
my
it
eyes are
bigger.
getting old and failing here. So first policy of 3 is 55.100, general personnel staff development program. There's been a new mandated section added here about staff development program, shall include the Abused and Neglected Child Reporting Act, ANCRA, School Code and Awareness and Prevention of Child Sexual Abuse and Grooming Behaviors, Aaron's Law training as follows. And it kind of outlines what those, what that training needs to look like. We do Aaron's Law already, and again, this is a case of we do most of this already. There would be some adjustments, I believe, by the last number there, by January 31, 2023, and every year after, all school personnel must complete evidence-informed training on preventing, reporting, and responding to child sexual abuse, grooming behaviors, and boundary violations. So, again, this is one of those that kind of memorializes what is already in place here. Any questions on that one? Second one, also general personnel, regarding personnel records. There is a new addition here that's basically a prohibition on aiding and abetting sexual abuse. We're not supposed to do that. And they are now letting us know that for sure. So,
That wasn't it?
yeah, again, that was something that we had no concerns about, yeah. Any questions on that one? Next one, general personnel, abused and neglected child reporting. You see a theme here. There's been a legislative change, which has then driven changes in various policies here. And it gets back to, we have to complete an annual evidence-informed training related to child sexual abuse, grooming. Basically, it's restating what the other policies stated in a different section. And then on the back side of that first page, there's some revised language that basically says what the stricken paragraph says to a large extent, but with some different language added in there. And then a couple of these policies, I think the second and third ones have a couple of gender pronoun modifications that we committed to searching out as we updated our policies. So I have a couple of those as well.
Thank you for that. We now move to our 2022 resolution for reduction in force. I call for a motion to approve the resolution for the honorable dismissal of the following licensed staff pursuant to section 2412 of the school code, 105 ILCS 524-12. Namira Ihani, Melissa Gluskin, Ariane Petit, Deanne Sekolard, Rebecca Silverman, Judy Solway, Susie Yavorski, as presented.
So, going through RIFs is an annual process that occurs in school districts. Whenever certain conditions are met, if you are eliminating positions or programs, you would RIF the teacher who does that. Also for part-time programs, which you could foresee the amount of FTE, full-time equivalency, might change from year to year. You RIF and then you can make adjustments to that FTE up or down. So in the case of our art teachers, they are part-time. Their FTE can go up and down from one year to the next because it's based upon how many sections of art they teach. So when enrollment goes up, their FTE goes up, and when enrollment goes down, it goes down. So by conducting the reduction in force, we're able to staff according to our needs. Many of these teachers would be asked back. Oftentimes we have like elementary teachers that get RIFed. We have much less of that this year than we've had before, simply because we've had some staff member resignations, moving out of state, going into next year. So we're not really seeing the need to RIF elementary teachers at this point based upon kindergarten enrollment, because that's where a lot of that RIF need comes from, is when we don't have the kids yet, we plan for the staff the staff numbers to represent how many kids are actually going to be here. So as kindergarten enrollment comes up, you could be RIFed, then kindergarten enrollment goes up, it's time to add a new section in, and then you get asked back. So in a reduction in force, if we have a similar position or a position that they're qualified to teach, we're required to ask them back within the first full year after that RIF occurs. And I believe recently we actually had a teacher that got RIFed and then went and taught somewhere else for a year, and then a position opened up and we got to call her up and offer her a position, and she came back. At any rate, most of these positions would be asked back or reassigned to something else.
Jim?
Yes.
I expect I'm going to vote in favor. I think, and I appreciated what you described in the superintendent report about the rationale behind, some of the decisions that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it a lot in the context, actually, even before we hit it on the agenda of our strategic plan, because part of our strategic plan includes focus on the whole child, including it's in their linguistic
Programming and other things, yes.
and explicitly linguistic.
Mhm.
And we did get a fair amount, I'd say maybe 2 handfuls of public comment in terms of contacting the board on that point. And I hope in the context of the strategic planning that we're doing, that we think about ways that we can creatively look at how we staff so that we can assess how we're offering those programs. And if we can, offer options or expand it, because there is so much value, as I know you know from your own education.
Yeah. So what you're referring to, yeah, I'm a foreign language major
Me too.
by early college and have learned multiple languages, and I'm a big fan of language learning. So the idea of not having enough kids to staff a French program pains me, as it did years ago when German went away from a lot of places. That was my undergrad degree.
Mine was French.
Yeah, so I totally understand, and am a great supporter. My kids are all bilingual at home, and I live in a bilingual household and bicultural household as well. So I absolutely value it. It's just when we don't have what we need to look at is kids' interest, and when we don't have kids who are interested in something, that's where I come to the point. Why are we offering this? We ought to be searching for what kids are interested in to learn. Yes, there are kids interested in French, but it's just a very small number.
And that's really what I'm thinking about. Is I want and hope and expect that this will be the start of a conversation, not the end of one, on more broadly how we can address what the needs and interests are of the kids and families in the community when it comes to foreign languages.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. That can be part of a strategic plan discussion.
I also was, the question that I had too was, as someone who has taken courses in 5 different languages and speaks 3, it's very hard in language learning to do it remotely. It's a very high touch kind of a thing. And I'm curious about how the move to Zoom and the pandemic has affected interest in that, because I know like the overall cognitive functioning of even my students at university is significantly impaired right now because of trauma from that. And so I also wonder, like, is there a conversation to be had too about like, when are people, when is everyone's mental health gonna be at a point where they're gonna actually be able to actively look at those interests and actually think about them and dig into them, and probably now is not the moment for that conversation, but I was very curious about it when I saw it, because it's very hard to sell language learning in general, because it's hard, but then trying to sell it over Zoom, since it's so high touch point and interactive, is extraordinarily difficult.
So we put a lot of thought, into this and had a lot of those kinds of questions ourselves before we decided to move forward with this. And we looked at our numbers, and French, it's been, even pre-pandemic, it's been going down every year. And then we looked at our Spanish numbers. They didn't go down. They continued to go up, and they didn't go down as a result of the pandemic. So our conclusion was, I don't think less kids took French because of the pandemic experience, simply because Spanish did not see that kind of drop. So that we've explored all sorts of angles. Why is this? Why is this happening? And some of the languages we all grew up as having offerings in high school. I mean, when I was in high school, it's French, German, Spanish. Where the three classical languages that just about any high
Some
school.
schools Latin.
Yeah, and back when it was Latin too, and that's really shifted. Neither German, German programs have been, disappearing from a lot of places, and French is not very far behind in that regard. And part of it depends on the population where you live. If you live in a community where there's a larger French population, then you might see more interest in French. But in terms of what we all grew up with as offerings, at least two of those offerings just aren't all that viable for interest level, anymore. Some school districts have looked at Mandarin at the high school level. There's been some real challenges, I think. There's Mandarin at 211, I believe. Right? There's challenges with that. There's staffing challenges. Other languages have been looked at sometimes as well. And if you look at our community and what are the languages in our community, first of all, you've got a bit of a challenge to try to identify a language in our community and build a language program around that, because we have so many, and there's our top 6 or 7 languages have roughly similar numbers, even. And we can't create a language program that offers 6 different offerings. So it gets a little bit challenging, especially at the junior high level, to try to figure out, so what would you do? But it can be a great topic, for strategic plan discussions.
Well, and I think these are really tough administrative decisions to balance the interest of some of our student population with the our fiduciary responsibility to have staffing when we don't have a population to serve, and that's our challenge, is to put our resources in the best place, and so I can appreciate the struggle. I was so impressed with the students too. It's this is what we teach them to do, and these are important moments. These are really difficult administrative decisions. They're not value judgments. They're
like I said, it pains me to let go of the French program, just like it would any language program.
So I can appreciate the difficulty, and perhaps there will be a resurgence at some point of interest. We just don't know. But right now, I think it's a tough decision, and I respect and recognize that the challenge in making it, given
Well, for years we've held on to trying to keep 2 languages options open. Well, that's disappeared from about every junior high that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's other junior highs that offer more than one language, but as enrollments declined, we've continued to try to keep that going. But you do reach a point where do we create a special programming, and hire a teacher because of 10 or 20 or 8 kids are gonna be at a grade level in the program? If we do that, and this is just my caution for all of you guys in strategic planning that I'll participate in and beyond, is if you get into that kind of micro program creation, oh boy, you guys are gonna create all sorts of things. How many language programs would you create? Or, what would it, so if you look at very small slices of need or desire, you can really get in the weeds about, program creation. So.
And these are similar struggles, we have at my university a world languages and cultures program. And, over the last 5 years, we've had to, I guess we should say sunset, right? Noel, not close programs, but sunset programs because there isn't enrollment interest in them. And it's tough. These are important parts of the world, important languages that, we want to serve, but we don't have the students for them.
Yeah.
We can't.
I mean, ultimately, when you look at 8 kids are gonna be in the 8th grade class, it's, the interest is not there to sustain the program. As painful as that is for, people who, it's something that they really appreciate and enjoy.
Absolutely.
And I thank all the kids, if any of them are listening out there, for their impassioned writing and their fond memories of French and District 68.
Very impressive.
And all their kind words about their teacher as well. None of this is about the teacher in terms of the decision making there.
Thanks, Jim.
Sure, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. No. Ruffner,
Yes.
Sturbanks,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Beljordan. Yes. Espinoza,
Yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Thank you.
We shall now move into a closed session. I call for a motion to enter closed session to discuss the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity.
So moved.
Second.
Sturbanks,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Beljordan. Yes. Espinoza.
Yes.
Joseph,
Yes.
Ruffner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for attending. Thank you for watching. Good night, Una.